Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is REGANELITE here with another Snowflake Talks. And today I'm going to talk with a very special guest. We originally knew him as the Countdown to Power. He's now the power of the people. It is Graeme Pryce. Graeme, welcome to the show. How are you, buddy?
Thank you.
It's your first time on a live stream as well.
Yes.
A bit weird for you, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a little bit, yeah. But
Yeah.
I'm up for it.
Okay. Well, the first most important question, could you tell the audience about your lovely dog there next to you?
This is Annie. Annie's been around a long time.
Mm.
She's very old and she's a little bit weird, and she's blind as well.
Oh. Okay.
I'm
So
not sure what you can say about her other than that. She still comes for the walk. She still enjoys her walks and she still enjoys her life, but she bumps into things a lot.
Well, Annie does like to be on video a lot because we do see Annie quite a lot on your videos.
Yeah. I think she sees me putting the ring light on and she knows that I'm recording something, so she comes over and yeah.
Oh, she notices something's going on.
Yeah.
Oh,
she looks like she's flat out most of the time, but actually I think she quite likes it.
That's good stuff. Yeah, hello to everyone who's here in the chat. Obviously, feel free to leave any questions and whatnot. We'll try to come to them as we go along. So, Graeme, I guess first and foremost, obviously, tell us a little bit about you and a bit about your channel. Like, what for those who don't know, what is Power to the People? What is your channel essentially about? For those who don't know.
Well, originally when I started, I named it Countdown to Power because I honestly believed that Rishi Sunak was going to go right through to January, and with the way the media is and everything, I wasn't sure that even then we were going to win, and I didn't realise that my countdown to power was going to end quite as soon as it did. So I had to think of something, so that I changed the Power to the People. But if you notice in my logo, I've got the P and the R capitals, because I think that now going forward, what people like me and you, and Phil Morehouse and Craig Hughes and stuff, I think people like that should be campaigning for proportional representation. Now, I know that it would result in parties like Reform UK having more seats, but they wouldn't be. Nobody would ever have complete control again. I'm kind of glad that Labour have got complete control at the moment, but I think there's a lot to do going forward, and I think even after the election, I felt like I still had a lot to say.
Well, your channel's done. Considering that you only set up the channel in September last year, only 77 videos and over 2,000 subscribers is fantastic achievement, and 172 people cross path for your channel. So that's really, really great stuff, Graeme. You've done really well in such a short space of time.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Go on. What are you going to say?
No, go on.
I was going to say, what made you want to start a channel in the first place? What made you decide to do a YouTube channel?
Well, before the Tories came into office, I wasn't even that interested in politics, to be honest. So as time's gone by, I watched the media, and I go into supermarkets and I have a look at the front pages of the newspapers as I walk past, and there's so much right-wing rubbish out there. And then I turn on the telly and it was there as well. But what really made me decide that it was worth starting a channel was just one comment that I saw Phil Morehouse making one of his videos, and it was a while back as well. It was at least 2 years ago, and I saw him say that even though the BBC and Sky News and stuff like that, even the ones that we think we can trust, are still a bit biased, and that there is people like us. He mentioned that he'd had 1 million views on his videos, I think, and that made me think, this is a way to actually speak to people. And most of my friends, if I speak to any of my friends about politics, they say, "Oh, I'm not interested. It doesn't affect me." So it was a way to get out there and find people that I wanted to speak to about it as well. But yeah, other channels, and even yours. I mean, I was watching your channel before I started my own channel. So other channels that I've watched made me think that it was worth doing, especially with like the reach that you can get.
Have you always been into politics all your life, or is it something that you've kind of grown into? Like, have you always been a Labour person, or what's your?
Well, I'm one of those people that is guilty of. I'm coming from a starting point of I will always vote Labour because that's what my parents did, and I trust that they were probably always right in their judgments. But then I've got enough critical thinking skills that as time's gone by, I've examined Labour and I've thought, well, no, they're far from perfect, but what they are is much better than any other option that we've got. So I would say, yeah, I have always been a Labour person, and I probably will continue to be, because if you look at the state of the Tories, they're the other biggest party, and then you look at Lib Dems, and the Lib Dems, mostly they're quite nice people, but they're not enough to make, a government. So really, I'm a Labour person because I feel Labour is the only option we've got to go forward. Whereas every other option is either invalid, like, Lib Dems, and certainly Reform UK, and, anything like that. And the Tories are invalid because of what they've done in the last 14 years. So I think I'm a Labour person, not just because it's grown into me, but also because I feel like it's the only way forward.
Are you a Labour member?
I am, yes.
So have you always been a Labour member, or is that something?
No, that started in about 2014, 2015, I think I became a Labour member. But again, it was because I'd looked and I'd thought, these are the only people out there that I feel I can trust, or I feel can take office. I think if I thought a party like the Lib Dems could actually form a government, there's a chance that I would vote for them, because there's a lot of things that Labour do that I don't agree with, which I do intend to do videos about in the future, and I have done a couple already.
Yeah.
But I think they're infinitely better than the Tories. I know a lot of people are, especially extreme left or extreme right, have arguments against this, but I was at the point, and I think the country was at the point, and Keir Starmer needs to, appreciate that. I think a lot of us were just at the point where it was no more Tories. No more, we couldn't deal with another prospect of another 5 years of a Tory government.
Yeah, I think definitely, like 14 years of Conservative is such a long time. There was no other political party in control at all during for that. And I say to people a lot, like 14 years is a long time. It's a big chunk of people's lives. People don't realize that. And I know, obviously, I have my views, obviously, and I have my criticisms of Labour, of course, and many of my viewers, especially those from Scotland, are obviously very critical of Labour, and they're perfectly entitled. And they're perfectly entitled to have that opinion. But I just feel like, I just felt like you, yes, we do need to get the Conservatives need to be kept out of power. We do. But also the question is obviously what happens next. And obviously this is where is it fair to say that you're obviously, you're looking, is PR the main thing, something that you really want to push from your perspective to your channel and your viewers towards?
I think it is. I think as we draw towards the next election, then I'm going to be considering my options. And I've always said that if I look at something and I think it's changed to the point where I need to change my opinion, then I will do. But I think that, I don't think we can take the chance of sticking with majority government, because there's a chance that the Tories might become a majority government again. And look what they've done. Look at the state of the country after 14 years of the Tories. I think anything that prevents the chance that they could ever become a majority government again is something I will pursue.
Are you do you believe that obviously that Labour, obviously, because they have so many seats, they have so many MPs, do you feel do you feel like, while obviously you're happy that Labour are in government, do you feel maybe they have too many MPs, maybe even too much power?
Yes.
The situation that we are in, the system that we have.
I do, and I think it's fair to say that it is undemocratic, in my opinion, because I generally trust that the things that Keir Starmer and Yvette Cooper and people on the front bench are going to think of, I generally trust that there will be things that I will approve of. But I come out with something that I really seriously disapprove of, and in the system that we have now, there's nothing we can do about that. They'll be able to pass it anyway because of the huge majority that they've got. They might, and it's unlikely because I've followed Labour for so long that I do know that most of their ideology fit with my own view of what the world should be like. But there is always a chance that they might do something that I absolutely hate, and they'll be able to just do it practically unopposed. So this is why I think the first past the post system is undemocratic.
Yeah, I mean, given obviously the result of the general election, I mean, I'm sure you agree with me that none of us wanted Reform getting any MPs, or we didn't want the Conservatives coming second. But still, can't argue that you know, the third most votes were Reform, and the second most votes were for the Conservatives, and that's and obviously I think that's obviously there's still an issue of trying to convince and win over hearts and minds, because still lots of people still lots of people still support them regardless of what people regardless of what we think, unfortunately. No, Phil, Annie's not dead, Annie's just sleeping, if you're Annie's just sleeping.
Annie's very, very, very old.
We'll talk a bit more about pets later, because I've got a very old cat which some of the members have seen pictures of as well. So yeah, yeah, I mean, like, obviously, like, I've become more inclined in more favor, like my viewers know, I've become more in favor to the Greens policies rather than Labour, just because I just think that some of their policies appeal more to me. That's not to say I don't find some of Labour's policies quite appealing. I just think that I still have my skepticisms about Keir Starmer. And when I hear when there are stories out there about them accepting obviously big donations from some corporations and companies, it does worry me about the influence that they could potentially have in Labour, despite the fact they still have unions, have a union within their party. It does obviously draw concerns for me. Are you concerned about the influence of some of these companies' influences on Labour, and it could actually drive a wedge from what they're supposed to be what is viewed as obviously a party for the working class people?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think at the heart, they should always appeal to just people, working class people, middle class people who want other people to have nice lives rather than just be selfish. And even right down to the bottom, Labour should appeal from the top of the middle class right the way down. And if they're not doing that, then there's something not quite right in what they're doing. In my opinion, the Tories appeal to greedy and people who just I'm all right Jack type people. Labour should appeal to everyone else, and they're not necessarily doing that at the moment, and it is a little bit of a problem for me. But as it goes along, I am observing what happens. I've spent so long waiting for the Labour government to get in, and I know quite a lot of other people have as well, and I don't think we can expect immediate change.
Yeah, I think this is definitely something that people don't have, which is called impatience. Patience is the thing. Patience is the word I think people don't have.
I think the Tories have put us on such a doom spiral that it's going to take a while for Labour to pull it back and stop it. And I think that we should see huge improvements after a couple of years, but it's 6 weeks, isn't it?
Well, I do say, obviously, see what they do after 100 days would be a first indications of what they haven't done.
It's an absolutely fair point, though, and there's people who've said to me, like when I've mentioned West Streeting, people have said to me, he's accepted donations from Israel, and there's Yvette Cooper. You've seen me say, I've got quite a lot of faith in Yvette Cooper. I wouldn't be surprised if she ends up Prime Minister one day. But then, if you look deeply into her character, there is times when she's done things that I'm like, well, that seems a bit questionable.
Yeah.
I absolutely accept this in some ways that I am a bit biased in that I'll ignore little things that Labour MPs do that, maybe I wouldn't ignore that if the Tories did, or Reform UK MPs did, or SNP did. So I am concerned at where the donations and things come from, but I still think they're better than the Tories, and that's at the moment, you know, that's what we need to fulfil.
If you had to do a video on a certain Labour MP, on the Labour MP of like the 5 reasons why a Labour MP was a twat, like as opposed to the Conservative, which MP would it be? If you had to pick one to show, if you had to pick one, who would it be out of all the Labour MPs there?
Somebody who's been an MP and not necessarily an MP anymore. Margaret Hodge.
Oh, okay.
I really don't like her. I think she's awful.
Okay.
Really genuinely awful. I'm not very keen on David Lammy either. I'm going to trust him to go away and be better at it than David Cameron was, but I'm not massively keen on him.
No, I'm not 100% convinced either. But
that's probably just because he's a Labour MP.
What are your feelings about West Streeting? About things that he's said in the past and things that he's saying now? Do you think like, because I personally think he's the worst MP in Labour, in my opinion. But what's your gut feeling about West Streeting?
I'm not particularly keen on him. I think he's probably competent in that. He's probably more competent in getting what he wants to be done than any other Tory health minister was. And I think he's probably going to be better at speaking to the doctors and the unions and, you know, and things. But I don't necessarily think that he's better than that. If you look, I think he's you know, what we do is a saying, you know, running with the hounds and hunting with the, I don't know, I can't remember. I think he does what he thinks the public will approve of the most at the time, rather than stick to his own convictions, which is, it's a bit questionable, isn't it? I'm not sure I want MPs that do that.
The thing is that the thing that bothers me about West Streeting is that he's so, that is how convinced he is that we need privatization to help clear the backlogs in the healthcare system. And I just don't think that's my feeling is that he will keep private healthcare within the NHS after he clears the backlog. See, that's the thing is that I don't trust him to push private healthcare out. Let's say he does clear the backlogs. Let's say he actually does that, because obviously that's everything. Everyone wants better healthcare. Everybody wants the backlog cleared. Everyone wants to be able to get their service. But my fear is that he won't push private away, and he'll keep that within the NHS, keeping it close to us. And that's my concern about him, because I just don't. No one's really asked that question.
Exactly. I think that it's an absolutely valid concern, but it's also a valid concern that we can't do anything about. All we can do is watch what he does. I agree that we probably are going to need to use private healthcare to clear the backlog. I think all we can do is watch that happen and hopefully watch him do it competently, and then find that at the end of it, he does like what you said, you know, and then steps away from private healthcare. But we can't know which way it's going to go, so it's hard to judge him on the fact that he's using private healthcare now, because I think it's unavoidable. I think really we've got to let him get on with it, and you know, I certainly won't be reposting anything he tweets or, you know, anything like that. Like, I'm no fan of it, but I do think he's competent, and I think as long as what he is thinking is that he's going to use private healthcare and then end it when he can, then I support that. But the only way we can know if he's going to do that is to watch what happens. We can't judge now. I don't think we can judge him on it now. We've got to look and see if he actually fulfills what we want him to do.
How do you think Keir Starmer's been doing as Prime Minister so far?
I like him, and I think if you've watched a few of my videos where I have mentioned him, I think it is quite clear that I do like him. I think he is a good man, but And I didn't think any of the Tory prime ministers were genuinely good people. I think he's the first person we've had for a long time who is somebody who you would meet and walk away from thinking, I like that guy. Whereas the rest of them are just robotic charlatans. But I do think even Keir Starmer, it shows how much influence that advisors and things have, because I think even he comes across quite robotic at times, and sometimes I wish he'd up a bit. Because from what I've read about him, because I have read quite a lot about him, and I've paid quite a lot of attention to who he is and what he's done in the past. And I do think if people knew a bit more about him, they'd like him a bit more, and they'd realise how far he is away from anything that the Tories have ever offered. He is a very different. It's why it kind of annoys me when people say, "Oh, he's a red, he's a red Tory" and things, because he absolutely isn't. But at the same time, there are a few things that he says and he does, and I'm like, I don't agree with that. I don't think that's right. And I'm a little bit shocked sometimes, like, the things with the 2-child policy and the things with the winter fuel allowance and stuff like that. It's like, what are you doing? It feels like he's pandering when he does stuff like that.
Yeah. I will obviously say, like, I think what I've said about the 2-child benefit cap, and I don't know if you agree with this, I would say, obviously, there is a great deal of pressure on the budget at the end of October with whatever the Chancellor will come out with, because that will be where a lot of things that people want money for certain things or certain projects that aren't going ahead or they don't know about. I think that will be that'll be a lot of question. But obviously, if we hear nothing about the 2-child benefit cap in the budget, obviously, that will obviously once again reinforce this issue that he doesn't care about children, about child poverty. And I think that's going to be a major issue.
Line, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm kind of hoping. I mean, I suppose it's probably something I shouldn't do, but in some ways, I'm hoping that when the budget comes out, I'll be vindicated a bit more, and that they're gonna say a lot of the things I agree with. But by the same token, I'm not certain they will. I'm really not certain they will. I think Rachel Reeves is, again, like I think with Red Streeting, I think she's competent, but I'm not sure I agree with everything she wants to do. I think I competently do some things I don't agree with.
Yeah. No, I think I mean I'm also very skeptical as well, but I'm also kind of like waiting to see what this budget is going to be, what exactly she's going to say, what's going to be in it. And I think once we have that, then we will be there won't be no hiding, no delaying, no differing really with this Labour government. Either they're going to be fixing these certain things, or they're not going to be fixing them, because they've always been going on about being physically responsible with the economy, physically responsible with money. Well, this is where they can show they're physically responsible with money.
Exactly.
At this budget, but at the same time as well, which everyone knew before the general election was even called, was that taxes were going to have to go up, and it was just a case of where those taxes are going to come from. And I think that's going to be, regardless of what any of us think, taxes were going to go up, whether it was going to be a Conservative government or a Labour government at the budget.
I do think that during the debates there was I can't remember, I won't list them off, but there was I think there was 4 main taxes that they said they wouldn't would not rise.
Yes, I believe it was
as far as I'm aware,
national insurance, income tax. Is it income tax? I'm pretty sure it's income tax.
I think so.
I can't remember if it was capital gains tax. Someone will remind me. The third one was. I know national insurance was one that was not going to go up. I'm pretty sure that was one that was definitely not going to go up.
I'd be disappointed if they blatantly and dishonestly broke that pledge. But I think we all expected taxes to go up, as you say. And I did a poll on my community page during the election where I think you probably voted in it, where I said, would you rather have lower taxes or better services? And people generally voted for better services. It was a little bit more complicated than that, but people generally said they'd rather pay more tax and have better services.
Yeah, the premise, obviously, whenever you mentioned people raising taxes or pulling up taxes for people, the general consensus on the street is people don't like taxes. There's this perception that people have.
It seems the richer people are, the less they like taxes.
That's true, but I also think the average Joe on the street also doesn't like taxes either. But
Well,
I think the average Joe doesn't understand that taxes are the reason that the services are run. That services that are run is because of taxes as well. Like, so I think that's, you know, that we got to break. I think there's this. We have to break this perception that taxes are bad for people. It's a case of obviously what you're taxing and who you're taxing, I think, is also obviously a key thing as well. There as well.
I think it seems to be a big thing in America as well, and I think that bleeds over a bit. You know, it seems to be all the richest. Well, obviously Donald Trump and people like that. All the richest people want to make everybody who else is rich even richer, whereas, you know, and further down people don't so much. And I think it bleeds over to England as well, as like you say, taxes is like a bad thing that we should be frightened of, but it isn't. Paying more tax means you live in a better society.
Yeah, it's just wish our tax system was a bit more
controlled. Tax though, isn't it?
It's different for everyone, isn't it? But there is a lot of things. I was just going to say there's a lot of tax reforms that are needed anyway, because there's a lot of unfair stuff. But I think Labour are afraid to change things too quickly to upset people as well.
I do think there's definitely an aspect of that,
yeah, definitely, for sure. I just want to come back to your channel a little bit. I wanted to ask, actually, because obviously one of the things about one of the most popular things I think that people know you for is your 5 reasons why a certain Tory is a twat, or why this person is a twat, or, you know, these great. I think Jonathan Gullis, the stupidest Tory MP. Like, why did you decide to do videos along this lines? And was it what was it just a case that they were like, what was the first video actually that really got you started doing that, and you were thinking, oh, you know what, I've got something going here?
Jacob Rees-Mogg was the first one. Yeah, Jacob Rees-Mogg. I did a video, and just sheerly out of chat. I wouldn't pretend otherwise. I'd be daft if I did otherwise. I'd gone and, you know, I'd Googled and I'd looked and I'd learned a little bit about YouTube and how it all works. And I'd heard that, like, if you put certain things in your title, said it'll help. You know, and I at that point, I was still thinking I was happy with like 200 views on one of my videos. That would feel like a massive success to me. And then I did 5 reasons Jacob Rees-Mogg is a twat. And within about 4 days, it had like 14,000 views.
Yeah, he had 14,000 views on 5 reasons Jacob Rees-Mogg is a twat. The honourable member for the 18th century you got up there on the thumbnail as well, which I think is a very nice one there.
And then I mentioned it. I mean, there was a few sort of live streams that I watched. I've been a member on and off with Phil Morehouse on a different biosphere a couple of years. And I watch Politics Social, or Labour Social, as it used to be with Graeme Pryce. So, you know, I'd watched stuff like that quite a lot over the years as well. And I thought, you know, I want to get my voice out as well. And then the first time I got one that felt like it was a success, and I'd mentioned to it, I had people mentioning it to me in the live stream when I was on their channels for a couple of days. And I thought, yeah, this could be this.
You know, yeah, you're thinking, I guess if there's 5 reasons Jacob Rees-Mogg is a twat, maybe I can find 5 reasons for every other Tory MP in this government.
Well, kind of, that's a little bit backwards in some ways, because when I started the channel, one of the things that I did think, and I have thought for a long time, since I found that website theyworkforyou.com that shows what all the different MPs have voted for, and that was about, I don't know, that was about 2014 when I found that website and started looking at how horrible these people were. Then I have always wanted to, and sort of believed that if it just made it, that if anybody just told or everybody in the country how horrible the Tories were and how horrible things they voted for, then they'd change their minds and they wouldn't vote for them. And that was part of the whole reason of it as well.
Yeah. Number 3, thank you so much for the £5 super chat. Modern monetary theory is worth exploring. The idea just to create bank money and spend it as needed. Taxes are used to control inflation. Thank you for that, number 3. Really appreciate it. And for the £5 super chat. Interesting to create bank money. Yeah, I'm not a tax expert, so I'm just gonna nod my head and agree. That's one thing I'm not very good at, understanding finances and economics. That's why, guys. That's why, guys, I avoid doing videos on that. I mean, I have tried 1 or 2 videos, and it was like, I better not stay. I better stay away from that.
Unless I'm sure of what I'm talking about, I'm not going there.
No.
I'm not a numbers man.
Yeah, I think Jal says just 5 reasons. Yeah, why do you only have 5 reasons?
Yeah, that's the most common comment that I get. That.
What's your response then to people who say 5 reasons? Then.
Yeah, it's just timing.
Yeah. I think there was you've had some where you've not been able to fit 5 reasons in, and I think you've had 1 or 2 where conservatives where you didn't have enough for 5 reasons. You had to stretch 1 or 2 out as well.
Hunt. I was really surprised by Jeremy Hunt. I went to try and find all the things about him and did my research. I usually spend a day or 2 reading about these people, but I don't want to say anything that isn't true.
Mm-hmm.
So I do generally read quite a lot of stories about them before I decide which of the things that are, the 5 things that annoyed me the most. And Jeremy Hunt was a struggle. Yeah, he is an idiot, and I don't think he should have ever been in the position he's in. But I don't think he's a nasty man. I think he's just an idiot. He's just an idiot who shouldn't have been there. James Cleverly is a little bit the same, although it was easier to find 5 things for him because he has been involved in quite a few things that are quite nasty. But I think if he wasn't an MP, he was just some bloke who lived like 3 doors down and across the road from you, he'd just be an idiot. It's just because of the position these people are in. Yeah, Jeremy Hunt was the struggle, though. I still don't mind Jeremy Hunt now.
Yeah.
If he becomes leader, I'll be like, yeah, they're probably on a better course there. Not a lot. He's still a Tory. Don't get me wrong. He's always going to be a twat, isn't he? He's a Tory. But of all of them, I think he's all right.
Which one was your favourite, or which one of them, like which Tory MP did you enjoy, like, shall we say, pissing on the most out of all of them?
Michael Gove.
Michael Gove. Why Michael Gove?
Oh God, that man is a moron. How he's ever got into the position he's in, God alone only knows. He's an absolute idiot. He really is. But it was quite funny because it gave me a lot of excuses to draw on things from I knew from my own past and stuff like that about raves and stuff, and because he's honestly he's whatever you think of Michael Gove is going to do next, he will surprise you. He is an absolute lunatic, that man. And he's been in a position of power for years.
He has been, he has been, definitely, indeed.
Yeah. He's not evil, Michael Gove, though. Some of them, there's ones that Kemi Badenoch was one. If I'm trying to think of one that, Suella Braverman, another one. One that when I researched them, it was a horrible time having to research them because I read days and days of rubbish. Kemi Badenoch was the worst. I come away from Kemi Badenoch when I come away from making the Kemi Badenoch video depressed to think that our country had fallen to a point when a person that horrible was in a position of power.
And could be the next Conservative leader.
Sorry,
I was just about to say, and could be the next Conservative leader.
Yeah. But then in some ways, because they're not in power anymore, I don't really mind if she's the next Conservative leader, because it'll bring up her ego and she'll say terrible, stupid things and she'll do horrible, stupid things. And everybody who's thinking, well, maybe I can vote Tory at the next election, will see that they've made her the leader. So I don't really mind anymore because they're not in office. It's different when they're in power. I'm kind of glad that they're horrible now.
Well, I just like, a part of me feels like they're not gone because they still got the second most largest vote share still, and they still got 121 seats. I think if they were a lot closer to Lib Dems in terms of seats and seat numbers,
if they had like less than 100, I think less than 100, I didn't expect them to be wiped out. I wanted them to be, and I did believe some of the polls that saw them, have particularly low results, but I didn't believe it was actually going to happen. And when the exit polls came up, I was more surprised by the one saying Reform were going to get 13 MPs than I was that the Tories still had over 100. Yeah, but I wanted them to get less than 100.
Yeah, I think everyone was a bit like panicking. Like, everyone was like, "Oh no, why are Reform getting 13 seats? What the hell's going on? What are you all doing?" But luckily, the proportion actually was actually even though they had like the second most vote share, it wasn't. It basically actually contributed to less Conservative MPs, but only very few seats that they still got 5 MPs, which is it no 5 or 6 MPs?
5.
It was 5, isn't it? Yeah, they
It's
still got
5.
5. Yeah, they still got 5 MPs, which is still.
Oh, it's far too many.
Yeah, it's still far too many. Even one's too many for me. But I would say obviously in you know this while obviously it's still obviously majority Labour and then the Conservatives. I think it's good that we have quite a few different parties in the House of Parliament. It's just what I think once we have proportional representation, obviously that will help balance the book, shall we say? I think down the road. How obviously we're not expecting proportional representation in this parliament.
No,
do you think there would be? Do you think the pressure will be applied as we come whatever happens between now and the next general election? Do you think the pressure will be applied on Labour to impose some kind of proportional representation?
Well, I think it depends on whether the momentum builds for it, doesn't it? It depends on people like me and you, telling them that that's the way we want to go forward. It clearly doesn't depend on the normal media or anybody on the Tory benches, does it? We have to let them know as strongly as we can as time goes forward that that's what we want. I think we might be 2 years away from the time when we have to really start putting effort in and researching and trying to share things. But I think we've got to tell them that that's what we want. I think we might have one more first past the post election, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, I think everyone. I mean, they didn't put it in their manifesto, even though that's what the majority of Labour members wants. I guess that's another question. At the if they have another vote on it, I don't think they're going to have another vote on it. But if they were to have another vote and they were to lose the vote, I think that would be much more worrying.
Yeah.
Because obviously,
because it is it's an issue for me. I would struggle with that if they had to vote on it. The people who voted against it, I'd want to examine the reasons why they voted against it and look whether they were selfish reasons or whether they were honourable reasons. But that could come from 14 years of having the Tories in government and always expecting the worst of politicians.
I think there's a couple. I think one of the reasons is there are obviously some Labour MPs who obviously don't want to fight more harder for their seats than some other Labour MPs. Maybe that could be a reason, because there are obviously very safe Labour seats that regardless of yeah, exactly. And I think every seat should be up for grabs regardless of what political party or where you're from. But and I think that does play into some of the potential Labour MPs who don't want to obviously give up their seat or don't want to fight more than they should for their seat, because obviously they feel they're in a very strong area.
Yeah.
What do you honestly think about? So obviously one of the things that's been rattling on is the whole immigration. I was going to say nonsense, but it's not really nonsense because people do.
It's not nonsense, but I know where you're coming from.
Yeah, I just what's your take on immigration? Like, you've seen numbers, you've seen statistics, you've seen what people say. What's your overall feeling about immigrants, people coming across the boats and whatnot? What's your general feeling about it? Because it is a topic that will never go away while the right wing have something to say about it.
I think that now that Labour are in office, I think it'll lessen over time. Hopefully, it isn't no huge wars break out anyway. It'll lessen over time, and I think also that they will stop speaking about it. People will stop being as bothered about it over time because the numbers will continually dwindle. Now that we have a government that's committed to solving it rather than using it as a problem to sell their ideology. But I think I understand why people feel out of place or why people feel that something is wrong sometimes when they look around in certain communities. I have been in places where I've been on the high street and I've looked around and I've thought to myself, Jesus, So I can understand why people who live in communities that are very intensely like that feel aggrieved. I get it. I do get it. But I also think that people should have the decency to rise above it and remember that, like, you know, you can't blame a brown faced fella who lives 3 down the road, drives a taxi for a living, for the fact that the economy is, you know, not working. Or it's not. I always think overall it is a problem, and it is something the government needs to address. But I don't think you can attack one particular person who's come across in a boat or who's, you know, in some way. It upsets me to see people that I know coming out with things that to me sound really racist, but to them sound quite reasonable because they've had years of being told that it's reasonable to think that. And I have got a few. I do know a few people who come out with all the most nastiest racist tropes there is, and I have to just bite my lip.
I was going to say, are you prepared to do a Tommy Robinson one, or are you a bit concerned about the backlash you might get, given that I've had backlash, Marcus has had backlash with Tommy Robinson, quite a few YouTubers have had quite a bit of...
I'm not scared of anybody, you know, in terms of just living my normal life, but there's a little part of me that is like, would somebody try to sue me? I haven't got anything to give them, but it doesn't mean that they wouldn't necessarily try their best to take what I have got. You know, some of these people are quite litigious. I will probably do something about Tommy Robinson though, and I think I will do it because at the moment it would be different if I had millions of subscribers, because then we'd know for a fact that he was going to see it. But as it is, I can make something that might reach 30,000 people and make me 100 subscribers and get a few more people like you that want to literally, you know, talk to me or listen to me. But he probably won't see it because it won't come up in his radar really, because I've got, you know, a couple of thousand subscribers. I haven't got millions. So if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it soon. But it is true to say that sometimes people like Casey Hopkins as well was another one that was like, do I really want to? Isabel Oakeshott is another one. I'm like, do I really want to take these people on? Because if they watch these videos, are they going to be really offended and attack me?
It's not so much the person themselves. It's their supporters it's more their supporters more than anything that will come on the channel.
I don't like J.K. Rowling because she encourages pylons to people that disagree with her in her posts. You know.
No, there's a lot of reasons why I don't like J.K. Rowling as well. Might be something to do with being transphobic as well. Might be another reason as well. I just want to put this up there because Phil wanted to ask this question. Do you think will Labour introduce voting reform as Starmer promised? He asked. Do you think they will? Obviously, at some point, but probably not in this parliament.
Yes, I do. Yeah, I do. I think they're listening. I do think Labour are listening to people like that. I think partly that they're listening because it benefits them. Because if they make people who ask questions like that, you know, want to vote for them, then that is quite a large number of people. And it's like, you know, with the thing about lowering the voting age and stuff like that, Labour will do. I think Labour will do stuff that will make more young people vote for them. Whether it's a bit cynical or not, who knows? But as long as it keeps the Tories out of office for long enough for the country to have a full reset without them, then I'm all right with it.
Well, that's another question I suppose is going to be asking, because obviously the longer the Conservatives are out, the question that will always keep coming up is obviously the big one. Obviously, of course, is Brexit, and so for me this is going to be the biggest issue that's going to come at some point, that Labour are going to have to face this at some point. They can't just keep ignoring it, because as long as we are out of the European Union, out of the single market, we are always going to suffer as a result of that.
Yeah.
But they're being very quiet. Obviously, they're saying, like, I think I'm kind of inclined to agree with a little bit what Phil says, that they may like do little bits here and there, little tiny little things to try and bring down some barriers, but not all of them. They can't bring them all down, obviously, but. The thing on Brexit, and do you think that we can get? Do you think that we will ever get back into the EU? Like Keir Starmer says, it will never happen in his lifetime. Do you think in our lifetimes we will get back in the EU?
No. Well, yes, I do. I've answered you on.
Let me quiet for a second there.
No, I was thinking about Keir Starmer. I think he said that and some people would say this is a particularly bad quality, and in some ways, I've got to agree. I think he's said that because he's thought that it's a thing he needed to say, and I think he's wrong, and I think even he knows he's wrong. I think it will be in his lifetime. I think it'll certainly be in our lifetimes. He's not much older than me, I think, but it'll certainly be in our lifetimes. But I think we can't get. But it's not an option until they can see that we have unanimous agreements across our government. And at the moment, we don't. We're still full of idiots like Lee Anderson, and they're not going to. They might give us some better terms and things, but we can't really talk about moving back into the EU until we haven't got people in Parliament who just absolutely oppose it for the stupidest and most right-wingiest of reasons.
Do you agree at the moment that unless we have at least, obviously reform is unlikely, but do you think if the Conservatives ever went more to the centre rather than to the right, started going more centre, and actually admitted that wouldn't openly admit it, but would they be more generous, inclined to rejoin the EU? Do you think there's a possibility then, perhaps, that maybe there may be more discussions openly about it, rather than trying to keep it all hush hush behind closed doors at the moment?
Yes, but I think that's 10 years away. The Tories need to completely kind of dissolve and reform and decide what the next move is. And I think that's going to take up the whole of the next Parliament. And then afterwards, I suppose there's a chance they might, have pulled it together again by, 2028, 2029. So maybe they will be ready for another election by then. But they're not going to turn that round in that time. And there's no other competitors for them, really, is there? We're going to have to until then.
Yeah, do you think, because my thought is probably not for another, like you said, another 10 years before we have serious discussions, but maybe even 20, 30 years before the possibility of rejoining the European Union is even possible. And plus, as people are rightly pointing out in the comments, it's up to the EU as well. I don't agree. That the EU will never let us back in, but I do agree with what Gary Arnold says there. As long as the Tory policies for Brexit continue, the EU will never let us back in. I agree 100%. As long as they're at the moment with our system, as long as we have the system that we have, 100% agree.
The Tories have got to completely reset and come back into line with a Labour Party that has been successful for a decade, and all agree that joining the EU is the right thing, and all be stable and normal governments, not like just people, not governments who disagree with each other for the sake of it and hate the EU because they've got the ERG and things like that. At the moment, we're not an attractive prospect for the EU. Why would they want us back? Look at the state of us.
This is a good point here. Do you agree with what Phil says here? Labour have a one term to apply change. They borrow votes from so many disgruntled voters. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I don't even think one term. I think 2 years. I think I'm hoping that we will be able to see a marked improvement in many things within 2 to 3 years, so that by the time it gets to 5 years and they're forced to call a general election, they will have a lot to fall back on and say, we've been doing a good job of this for the last 18 months or the last 2 years. So really, I'm not giving them 5 years. I'm giving them about 2 or 3, and then I will start heavily criticise them if things are no better than they are now.
No, that's a very good point. One Angry Pagan wanted to ask that he's planning on doing an environment version of Politics Social. If I do, would you be willing to come on sometime and talk about the environment? One Angry Pagan is offering there.
Yes, of course I would,
yeah. Obviously, he has an email on his channel if you wanted to send him an email, One Angry Pagan, as well, if you wanted to discuss that more with him there. Jao says the debt level of the UK's economy, and I'm not talking about the state's debts, it's the economy's debts, it has classified as toxic, and no UK government has talked about it. Yeah, I remember when David Cameron came in, and he obviously said, we got a deficit to clear, we got to clear the debt, we got to cut things, got to do austerity to clear the debt, and the debt's now worse than it was when he came in. So, we don't really.
Wasn't it? Absolute nonsense.
I
think in answer to that, I think the reason that the government aren't talking about it is because it doesn't win them any votes. People don't understand it. Not enough people are interested to understand it enough for them to win them votes. That's the only reason. The government will be aware of it.
Yeah, that is for sure.
Yeah.
He also says, Jow also says, ask yourself, would you endanger your country and economy to let the UK back inside the EU? Would it? I mean, I wouldn't say it would be a danger to let the UK back in. I think the danger is obviously letting them back in for the Tories to pull them back out or reform back out. I think that's the more danger rather than from an economy point of view. Because it would just obviously be too much of a headache for both sides, really. I think that's what it. I don't think it's so much on Britain's economy. I think it's more to do with political rather than any more political.
Not politically settled enough.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. I know it's obviously. I think it was now since more than a week now since the riots have kind of calmed down. Obviously, you've talked about it as well. Well, were you surprised by how, like, obviously what happened at Southport was obviously a horrible, terrible tragedy.
Absolutely.
And obviously still, like, we nowhere near do we talk enough about them, but about those horrible 3 little girls that lost their lives.
It's a shame to be buried in so much else.
Well, I guess, were you surprised by how violent things turned? Not just there, but the rest of the country, like the rest of England and Northern Ireland specifically, shall we say?
Yes, I was. I thought that there'd be protest. I did think there'd be protests because I actually read the story on I think it's called News 3 or something on the channel that gave out the fake name, saying that it was a Muslim fellow. I went and looked that night because I did wonder. And I think it is a lot of people. The reason they feel like, I can say I'm not racist because I wondered, and that was what Nigel Farage was playing on. But there was parts of me that, like, the night of it that it had happened, I went and I tried to find some news, and I found this one channel that was saying that the fellow was called Eli Al-Shikati or something, and I thought that doesn't sound very good. And then I noticed the only other places that seen this were places where it had been shared from that article. So I started to think, well, if that's not true, then and then the next day we had the riot start, and I'm shocked that so many people fell for such blatant disinformation. But I think that Andrew Tate fellow had a lot to do with it, and Nigel Farage had a lot to do with it.
Yeah,
Tommy Robinson mentioned a lot, but I haven't really followed him very much recently, and don't really know where his input came from. But I think he is to blame for building an undercurrent of that sort of feeling as well.
Yeah, so I think there was someone who had a Lincoln account. So the story that I caught on was on when I was looking up on it when it was just as it was kicking off, was there was someone from Southport who had a Lincoln account and basically claimed that it was a Muslim that came in a week ago or along those lines, and apparently that got Tommy Robinson supporters got caught onto it. Then they told Tommy Robinson. Then Tommy Robinson basically amplified it, and then that's obviously where it all.
I do use Twitter. I mean, you'll have seen from my videos. I do use Twitter to, I quite like engaging with idiots on Twitter and seeing what they'll say next. But there's certain people that I won't follow anymore. I suppose Tommy Robinson, I will have to if I'm going to make a video about him. But Katie Hopkins, after I'd made the video about her, I unfollowed it and stopped, because there's some people that just, the stuff they come out with is just ridiculous. So I haven't actually seen what Tommy Robinson said about it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. They were just looking for a reason to get involved, to take part in it all as well. Phil says Northern Ireland has religious divides for centuries, but the rest of the riots were only in England. Yeah, but there was obviously some in Northern Ireland, but I think they were also using it as a reason to get involved in riots on their part as well. I think that's because it was all
a couple of people turning up in Edinburgh with the Union Jacks and stuff and getting told to bugger off.
Yeah, they tried to, Tommy Robinson tried to do something in Scotland and got slapped down very, very hard for it as well. And it's just like, mate, like just you don't even try it. So
I was made up that night when I turned the news. Like I said in my video that I made about it all day, sort of where I am. I don't really hear much going on. It's not going to happen. And you know, I was just getting on with my normal day, walking my dog, and I didn't want to turn the news on because I thought there's going to be people chucking bricks at each other and you know all sorts. And then when I turned the news on, and it was like it was reporting that there was thousands of people, and it really raised my spirits. It really did. That was why I had to make a video about it because I thought that was so good.
Was you surprised? Like, I think one of the things that really upset me during the UK riots, there was this one clip I saw. I don't know how many clips you looked at the riots themselves, but there was this one clip where I saw just youngsters just literally walking down this road, and they were literally just smashing windows, smashing homes as they were walking past. Not even thinking for 1 second that could, whether it didn't matter whether it was a white person's car or a black person's car or whether they're an immigrant or a British person, they were just smashing every single car and vehicle and home that they was literally coming past in the window.
Yeah.
And that made me feel really, really ashamed to be English, to be British in any way, shape or form. That was one of the, I think for me, that was one of the lowest points in the riots.
That's beyond racism, isn't it? That's just wanting destruction for the sake of it.
That and obviously, and then obviously, obviously, I think the people making the jokes about obviously, like, oh, you had to steal from Greg's because it would stop the boats, or steal the mobile phones so that they don't get to use the phones for you know, to, I don't know, contact the Department of Work and Pensions to claim their benefits or something. Like, you just like what, like
I mean, they really ruined it for the ones that did think they're wrong, but the ones that did think they had a genuine point and they were protesting, they ruined it for them. The people who went robbing from Greg's and stuff.
It was just absolute.
That guy coming out of Greg's with no top on and his daft grin on his face with his tray of steak bakes.
I was just like, yeah, it's all well and good, but it's going to get stale if you don't eat it, you know. Anyway, I'm 90% sure that guy's probably been caught already if he hasn't already.
Yes, it was very a picture of him.
Yeah, Jane Wallace, nail on the head there. It was football violence. Yeah, it's definitely a form of hooliganism. And which actually was a great point actually that you brought up, because there was an article, an exclusive from the Eye, that basically said that any of them that are linked to football, like football hooliganisms, or if they're known by certain football clubs, because they have been in coordination with some football clubs, obviously in the areas where they were, and then they'll obviously face bans from football clubs if they weren't banned already as well. So those people obviously not only are they going to face criminal charges and all that stuff, but also getting banned from football games as well, because obviously, yeah, just to kind of add insult to injury. But yeah, what did that Wednesday make you like? Let's talk about the before, when it finally calmed down. I think the Wednesday night, like, because that was really like the day before. That was really like the anticipation where it was going to be like the real kicking off and everything.
Yeah.
But and the Labour government obviously were telling people not to come out, not to take part, not to participate in it all, because they wanted the police to do their jobs. What was how did you feel about so many towns, so many cities coming out in defiance and saying like no to these, from Brighton to Walthamstow? I mean, there was so many towns and cities where they come out in force. How did that make you feel, seeing that?
I was surprised, but I also, surprised isn't the right word. I was a little bit shocked to see the numbers, but I wasn't surprised that feeling was there, because I believe most people are genuinely decent people, and sometimes people will get led astray a little bit by reading the Daily Mail and watching GB News and GBBs and things like that. But mostly people don't really want other people to be harmed, and I think the majority of decent people in the country, regardless of whether they were black, white, or somewhere in between, could see that decent, normal people were being harmed, and decent, normal people were being hurt by this. And people came out, I think, in force to stop that as much. I think the race thing is quite a large part of it. But I think also people just said enough is enough, which is quite ironic because that was what some of the slogans said in the riotty people, wasn't it? But yeah, I think people said no, we're not having this, and I think it really heartened me. It really did. It cheered me up loads, and I think they talked about it throughout the day, and people were. I think a lot of people sort of silently thought to themselves, "I'm making a stand here," and then those people came together on the streets, and there was thousands of them. In some places, there was 500 to 1 far right protesters. I think it was.
Yeah, it was five racists in Brighton against like 10,000, like a 10,000 strong crowd in the city of Brighton. It was like, the police had to escort them out because obviously they hadn't done anything wrong there, but obviously they had to, because the police have to do their job and protect them from the anti-racists. But there was that Labour councillor. You heard the story about the Labour councillor making
Yeah. There's always one.
Yeah.
Always one, and he was it, wasn't he?
Mm.
What an idiot.
Yeah.
I'll never take him back in.
I just like, for me, my premise is always this case of like I understand the anger, I understand the frustration, I understand how you feel about these people, but it's just a case of just don't sink to their level. Don't sink to their level. And that's exactly what he did.
Have a bit of nous about what you're saying. Even if you believe that, at least try to apply it in a way that makes it feel and seem reasonable. Don't stand there and chant it in front of it. I mean,
Yeah, for those who don't know, there was a Labour councillor in, I believe it was in Walthamstow. It wasn't in Walthamstow, yeah. And he basically called for for them to basically have their throats slit, basically, the racists. Basically, that's what he said, and it was on video. Like
something about Palestine as well, which was a little bit annoying because it draws, it draws sort of it all together, doesn't it? And it makes people who are trying to say that, there's anti-Islam and then and everything going, and anti-Semites about it. It all feeds into that, and I was like, why did you do that? Why couldn't you have just taken the victory that you had against anti-racists? I mean, against racists. Why couldn't you have just been happy with what had happened? He had to add more to it, and I thought he went too far. I'm not surprised that Labour have suspended him, and then hopefully they won't take him back in.
Liverpool told the racists where to go to, says Trevor Cracken. Yeah, they did.
I mean, we don't like racists around here.
No. You don't read the Scum newspaper up there for. They don't read the Scum newspaper for a reason.
There's a newsagent at the end of my street there, about 5 doors down. Doesn't sell it, and there's another one about maybe 5 minutes walk away. He doesn't sell it either. They do sell the Daily Mail though, so they're not.
Yeah.
People.
That's a failure on their part. Jao says everyone can express their opinions as long as we are polite. No need for conflicts. Express yourself. My thing is obviously, before you give your view on that, like I think I did this in a video as well, because obviously people were talking about free speech or suppression of free speech. Like, I don't agree with. Oh, just so you know, your camera's switched off, by the way. Free speech obviously is hopefully he'll be back in a moment, guys. He's probably doing something. The free speech that they have in America, as you guys know, obviously you can say pretty much anything without pretty much any consequences. But I do obviously think that that's too dangerous, and I don't think it's something that we want here. At all. And maybe some of you guys in the chat will probably disagree with me on that, because I think there is far too much of it, to be fair. I'm just gonna see what you guys are saying in the chat while Graeme was just gone away for a second as well. Verticu says everyone knew in the EU thought the UK will be out of the single market in Eurozone. ECB can finally do things that they wanted to do, i.e. bring control over Euro to the Eurozone. Yes, but we'll have to
Sorry.
wait and see.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. You turned off the camera.
Sorry, mate. I didn't do it back deliberately. I've just got wires everywhere. I knocked one of the wires and it went off, and I didn't know what to press to get it going again.
Yeah. Were you listening to me the whole time, by the way? Or
Yes.
Oh, okay. So I was just like, keep going.
Sorry, mate.
Yeah. No, you're fine. I was just going to say, what's your feeling about freedom of speech there? You know, talking about like I don't want the freedom of speech. I think that America has. I think it's too dangerous to have two, like, I don't call it freedom of speech. I call it absolute free speech is what I call it, because you can say pretty much anything without any consequences. Well, I think that there should be some consequences for things that you say.
I think it's really difficult because, you know, in the era of social media, and then you've got people like Nigel Farage who are very skilled at saying something without saying it directly. You know, when he said, "I'm just asking questions," we all knew what he meant. He was implying that there was something being hidden.
Yeah.
And I think it's very difficult to constrain that into something that you can punish or something that you can eliminate. I think it's super duper complicated, and I think I'd like to think it won't only get worse, but at the same time, I don't necessarily think there's a way of solving it. Freedom of speech should never mean freedom from consequences of what you've said, though. I don't like the way Elon Musk is going, you know, lately. That's not freedom of speech. That's just freedom to offend anybody you feel like.
Yeah.
And, you know, and selectively deny voices to people you don't agree with.
The UK doesn't have freedom of speech. It's a freedom of expression, not freedom from consequences. We do not have a written constitution. Yeah, that's one thing. We don't have a constitution. I do think that's something that we should be definitely looking at.
No, we don't. But we do have a lot of things written into law. And I mean, we have still got things to fall back on, like concrete.
Well, I do think we should have a constitution of some sorts in the UK. I do think we should.
Yeah.
Because what you don't want is things that are pretty much basic human values, for example, like human rights, obviously. Like, I feel like the Conservatives wanted to take them away from people.
Yeah,
right?
and not for any reason that was beneficial in any other way other than to themselves.
Yeah, like, and something like if a constitution was put in, like, saying that enshrines human rights, like, and let's say the Conservatives came back into power and wanted to take that away, like, I would want it to be like, well, you could take it away, but you got to have like 80%. It would be like something like you have to have like 80% of Parliament approving of what you want to do, sort of thing. I think that's kind of how I would want if someone was to impose, if we were to have a constitution, it would have to be, it's not just a case of having a majority in Parliament to do it, but you would need just the majority of like 60% or 51%. You would need like a high percentage to want to change that.
Not just everybody from one party saying that they think that's what we should do, and everyone else just being told that's what we're doing now. Shuffle. Yeah, because that's pretty much what we have now.
Yeah, Stephen Moore says all speech has consequences. Absolutely. Absolutely. The consequences of our speech is whether or not you guys stay and watch the show, whether you're hitting the like button, sharing it across social media, or subscribing. And if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe to Power of the People's YouTube channel as well. The link for it is in the description, guys. So make sure you have subscribed to his channel whenever you can, guys, as well. And also, if you want to financially support myself or Graeme for the work that we both do on our YouTube channels, Graeme does have a Patreon. I'll put a link for his Patreon if you guys want to financially support him. Do you have your membership up yet, or is it not?
Yeah, join it again now. Yeah.
So you do have membership as well now, which is good as well. So yeah. So if you guys wanted to financially support in that way as well.
Passport.
How long was your wait for the passport?
I think it was about 7 weeks. You know.
7 weeks.
Yeah, and then and loads of people kept saying to me, Mine didn't. It kept saying mine didn't take that long. You know, you'll be all right. It'll come in about 3 weeks, and that time just kept dragging on and on and on. And but getting everything ready for it took ages as well. I haven't had to have ID for years. And I don't drive at the moment. I used to drive, but I couldn't be bothered now. I haven't got a car. So I didn't have a driving license either. And as you all know, you know, Google barely, and we don't have national ID cards, do we? So, you know, it's driving license, national ID card or passport in order to set up, you know, memberships and payments from Google AdSense and things.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to jump for a few hoops, obviously, and obviously you got to make sure you give your fair share of US tax as well. Yeah,
I had no idea what was going on when they started asking me questions about that.
Yeah, that's something. Yeah, because it's obviously a American company, obviously, so you have to pay your fair share of American tax, guys. Yes. Jao asks a very important question. So, do you have a black passport, Graeme, or a blue one?
Yes. No, I think if you shine a light on it, it might be very slightly navy blue, but to the eye, it's black.
Oh, okay. So you did not
it
get
looks like something an evil empire would you know would distribute.
So it's your evil biometric passport to get into the Death Star. Yeah.
But I haven't had one for years, so it all looks very modern to me anyway.
Yeah.
All the weird little pictures and the plastic bits in it and stuff all look very modern to me.
Well, I still have my UK and EU passport, the United Kingdom and European Union United Kingdom one. Yeah. Unfortunately, it runs out in 2 years' time, so I will have to give it up at some point, guys. Unfortunately. Yeah, so it's going to be a very sad day when I have to give it up, but the clock is ticking on it, I'm afraid.
Do you know what? My last one that I had, when I was looking through it and I had to send it to me to get a renewal, most of the places I'd been hadn't actually stamped it. And I was a little bit annoyed. I thought all these places that I've been and hardly any of them have actually bothered to stamp. It was mostly empty. I think only Malta had stamped it.
I went to Iceland last year and they stamped my passport there. Went to Hamburg as well, I think, during a couple of years ago as well. Had to get it stamped there as well. So, but there was a story as well that's been around that I don't know how many people in the chat are aware of the story. That there was a story a while back about certain passports, that certain British passports weren't being accepted when they arrive in the country for some reason. And I don't know if it was a case of it was because it was a couple of years. They were perfectly valid, but for some reason they weren't being accepted, and it might have something to do with there either being old passports or I can't remember the full story off the top of my head, but it was. But I remember when I covered it, everybody in the chat in the comment section were telling me I should have got a new passport, which I still haven't done anyway. So, on that, Jao says in Portugal, our constitution bans authoritarian regimes of any kind. Legally, the army is authorized to topple any government trying to impose it on the state. The army is the last guardian of it. Well, you're in a very well, Jao. I know obviously you talk a lot about Portuguese politics over there on the channel, obviously. So. You're in a very good place there. Just quickly, you happy to keep going? You're all right, by the way.
I'm all right. Do you know what though? I think the camera angle's changed, hasn't it?
Yeah, you did something with the camera. I think you might have zoomed in. Actually, I think it's what you did, but probably you don't need to touch it. It's fine. I'm sure you'll touch something in it. It'll just go and it'll go again.
I've done anything like this, so I wasn't really sure how it'd work.
So let's. There was one or two other topics I'm gonna bring up before we come back to the before stuff in the UK. So one of the things, obviously, I don't know how much you read up and talk about, obviously, what's happening over in the Middle East. Obviously, the recent report today was from the Gaza Health Ministry. The Gaza death toll has passed 40,000, according to the Gaza Health Ministry now. Obviously, more than 110,000 have been injured since the start of the October 7th, from October the 7th since then, according to the reports. There was obviously supposed to be talks from today, I believe, but doesn't look like there's going to be anything happening. I know it's not really a topic really you go dive too much into on your channel, but how are you feeling about what's happening over there? Because it is, without a shadow of a doubt, what's happening in the Middle East, what's happening in particular in Gaza, is deeply affecting politics here, and definitely affecting communities and people's feelings about definitely affecting, shall we say, Britain as a whole, really.
It's absolutely appalling, isn't it? It's absolutely shocking. I saw a map today, and it showed they'd put a red dot everywhere where an Israeli bomb dropped, and it was almost, but there was a little narrow strip at the bottom, because they tried to say, didn't they, that at first that people could seek refuge in, in the south, but they'd still bombed hundreds of places there as well, and it's like it doesn't seem right to me that you can drop bombs on all these thousands of people and kill the children and disrupt their lives and destroy their communities because maybe 1 in 100 people is somebody who is a terrorist and against you. I don't think it. I think there needed to be a response, but I think they've gone way beyond anything that could be considered a measured response, and they're trying to change the whole dynamic of the region.
Are you aware? I was just going to ask. Are you aware of the story about the Palestinians imprisoned that were raped?
I haven't heard that one.
Okay, so for those who don't know the story, so it was literally on a monologue from James O'Brien, from one of his monologues, I think yesterday.
I generally watch most of James O'Brien's shows, but I missed the odd one, so this must be one that it is.
So there's a story, but it's not just a story. Well, the video is out there. If you really want to go out and watch the video, you can do. I wouldn't recommend watching it, guys. So basically, a group of an Israeli regime basically took there's video footage of a Palestinian prisoner. Whether he's Hamas or not, debatable, don't know. But basically, they took him into a corner, hid behind riot shields, and basically, on camera, raped him.
Oh my God.
So, and unfortunately, this is not the first time I've heard these stories. Unfortunately, I've heard just as horrible things. But what's, I think, is the most infuriating thing about all of this is how much defense there has been there's been actually protesters in support of these soldiers rather than against their actions, as well as government ministers, people within the government in support and defense of these soldiers. There were literally protests outside where they were held. I believe they are under house arrest. This is what James O'Brien has said. They are currently under house arrest. But they were protesting, demanding their release. And they were basically saying, no worries, Stephen Baker, thanks for coming by. They were basically saying that that because they're Hamas or they're Palestine, that is perfectly justifiable what they are doing. That there should be no limits whatsoever. And even one politician, I'm sure someone will name him, basically said that he was perfectly that there should be enshrined in law that they can do whatever they want to these people, basically within the prisons. It's yeah. I mean, the stories that I've covered within the prisons has been like beatings, humiliation, all sorts of things that they've done within the prisons under them. But obviously, this is your first time hearing the story. I do recommend if you get a chance, just go on to BBC, and there is a video footage of James O'Brien talking about this.
I have heard about these things happening, and I think they've got to a point where they've hated each other so much that the troop that obviously either side's troops, they're trained to have extreme prejudice for the other side, and they dehumanize each other. And I think to people outside, like we are, it looks barbaric, but to obviously to people who have done this, it isn't. They feel that's the as far. as far as they were prepared to go. But as far as I'm concerned, that shouldn't it should never be part of any sort of conflict anywhere. And anybody who does anything like that should be taken out and imprisoned, tried and imprisoned immediately.
Yeah. Obviously, I think one of the most. I just want to say, Stephen One, thank you for the £10, £10 New Zealand dollars. I really appreciate your support. Thank you for that. Really appreciate that. Yeah, just a reminder, guys. These live streams are not monetized, so I make no money off these guys. So any super chats or memberships is always greatly appreciated here. And I'm sure if you guys do that on Graham's videos, is also super appreciated from him as well.
Oh yeah, I love it when you get that thing.
Yeah, it really does. It really does make a massive difference. Yeah. It's confirmed reports too, so not speculation. Yeah, I've for those who have seen the video, you can tell it's happened.
No, I don't think that things like that are happening. I think things like that happen in most wars. I'm not saying that makes it okay, but I'm just saying that I know that it happens.
Yeah, I think what's most infuriating is what's infuriating the most is that they're trying to say that there's nothing wrong with this.
No, there's no justification for that. There's never any justification for anything like that.
Yeah. And it does obviously, Israel have really tarnished their reputation with the handling of this for so long now. 8 months it's been now since it. And Benjamin Netanyahu obviously is not in any way, shape, or form looking like he wants to stop this at any time soon.
Well, no, I think there's similarities with him and Trump in some ways. I think they know that if they and Putin as well, they think if they know that if the whole situation they've caused stopped, then suddenly they've got to answer for causing it, and they don't want to do that. So that's what's keeping some of these insane things going.
Yeah. I mean,
Netanyahu's not going to win another election, is he? He knows that.
It's funny enough. There was a poll I covered from one article. I covered it on Rumble, where basically people apparently still support Netanyahu, according to one poll. I mean, it is only one poll, but still.
I haven't seen that.
No, but it's still raises alarm bells to me that there was a story actually as well. Like I saw that they wanted to take even a bigger chunk of the West Bank as well, an even bigger chunk of the West Bank. I think they said like somewhere they were going to legalize at least 20% of the West Bank or something. I saw somewhere on Al Jazeera. Like, I mean, it's just this is the thing that really that infuriates me the most. It's just how much there's not enough condemnation from governments. I think from people, from public and protests and whatnot there is, but there's not enough on this from governments. It's too quiet, shall we say, and too quiet. Like they say they want a ceasefire, but when you and there's someone who I don't know how often you look at the videos in Gaza, but when I look at those videos and it's brutal to watch some of them. I mean, like literally, I don't know. I'm sure you heard the story about the man who went to get his birth certificates for his kids.
Yes, I've heard that today. I was going to mention that. Yeah, I heard that today.
Yeah, I covered that yesterday, and
it's beliefs, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's just like I just like you can't defend that. Like the thing is that I feel like that Israel don't show, like the thing that really upsets me is that Israel just doesn't care at all about all of this. They don't care about these lives.
They've gone way past defensible.
Yeah, and I just wish if they had some sentiment or they had some sympathy or actually showed something like that, there probably wouldn't be so much anger from people about Israel, and you probably wouldn't have so much of this anti-Semitism towards them in so many countries as well. But they're not helping their situation, not helping their country, and they're certainly not helping their religion by the actions that they're doing in there. And I think that's and I don't think they realize that they're doing more harm to themselves than doing more harm to themselves on this.
I would say so.
Yeah.
I've lost faith in them. I don't think that they're reacting in, like I say, I think they went way above and beyond what the reaction to it should have been quite some time ago. So I've lost respect for them because I feel that they're recklessly just trying to punish people now rather than solve a problem.
Yeah. What do you think is gonna happen? Do you think a ceasefire is gonna come at some point, or do you think Netanyahu is going to get toppled, or what do you think is going to happen? Because this is still going on right now. What do you think might happen or could happen?
It seems sad to say, but honestly, I think he'll he will continue to basically do what he likes until it comes to a conclusion that Israel wants, and then the rest of the world, well, some of the rest of the world will try to justify that and say that that's the right conclusion. I think. I don't think anything will be. Maybe something might be learned from it, and it won't happen again. But I think that the war in Israel will come to a conclusion in Israel's favor, just through sheer force and ability to attack.
I hope not, but we'll have to wait and see on that. Obviously, issue. I'll just go what Jane wants to say. Israel have bought most of them off and blackmailed the rest.
Exactly. There needs to be huge amounts of money involved all of the time in Israel, doesn't it? And people that they're involved with.
Yeah, Verti says they want the prime beach properties. Yeah, because of obviously along the Gaza Strip there. Obviously, oil is another thing that was mentioned as well, because there's oil on the coast of that strip that they have as well. So oil apparently playing a role in that as well. But when is oil never a factor in wars? Oil is always on a factor there. Phil McCracken says check out Double Dows's news on Timmy 10 names and on who's doing his funding. Yeah, Double Down News are doing very good stuff. Yeah, they do some really good stuff there. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I saw a last video on them, to be fair, but yeah, Timmy 10 names, and yeah, they do a very good job of highlighting the issues out there. And as always, I was just gonna say, as always, like, our hearts go out to. I like even this, like I don't like that. Like I my problem is never with a people; it's always with a government. But I also think this government, the Israeli government, are poisoning the minds of the people so badly as well.
Yeah, I think there's some from both sides, to be fair, and there's a lot of propaganda involved in the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is for sure. That's just for sure. Thank you for the £5 in the chat, Phil. Appreciate it. Sorry, go on.
Part of the war, isn't it? Propaganda. So
yeah, it is for sure. The other conflict I will talk about before we'll talk a little bit about this, guys, and then if you have any questions, obviously just throw them in, and we'll answer your questions as we carry on for the time being. Obviously, how do you feel about Ukraine? Obviously, the war. I mean, how much of this have you been looking up on? I mean, obviously, the latest happening there is everything's all changed as of just a couple of days ago. I mean, I was looking at I used the Deep State map as something to look at of what's happening in there, and obviously this incursion that they've been doing in the Kudus region. I mean, it's a very clever, but how are you feeling about what's happening so far with the war there?
I'm a little bit surprised because I followed Ukraine a little bit more, and I am a little bit surprised that they've managed to make an incursion. I mean, there seemed to be always this thing saying that Ukraine would defend its borders, but it wouldn't go any further, and now they have gone further. And I've seen videos as well of Putin saying that this shouldn't be allowed and stuff. And it just seems crazy. But hopefully they will take what they've used and what they've taken. They will use as a bargaining tool to end the war rather than continue to fight and fight and fight. I don't think Ukraine's got the numbers, and I know that Putin's losing thousands and thousands of troops every month. So it can't go on forever. Maybe this will be the thing that will trip the switch and lead to a conclusion.
Yeah, they've lost over 500,000 soldiers, according to Ukraine's reports.
If you go look at the numbers, it's absolutely mental.
Yeah, and that's and guys, just remember, like 500,000 people have died in this war, this completely unnecessary war, guys. So many people have lost their fathers, sons, mums, daughters, and whatnot in this conflict as a result of this, and also now, many are being forced in conscription against their will in Russia to be a part of this as well. And that's as well, like all these Russian soldiers losing their lives needlessly. And I'm not going to say that this is that these Russian that some of these soldiers obviously want to do it. They want to fight for you to defeat Ukraine and whatnot because they believe it. But I would say a lot of them are doing this because they have to, not because they want to. I think
because it's a good living as well. They give them quite a good sum. They're quite well paid soldiers in Russia, or they were when it started. Whether they still are now, who knows? But they made it an attractive prospect to go and fight for them in the beginning.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, I've heard about this story recently. Phil brings up Ukraine incriminated in blowing up the Nord Stream warrants issued. I haven't read the story on this. I've only seen the headlines for this. So apparently Ukraine are allegedly responsible for the Nord Stream pipelines that blew up. And my first impression, like some people claimed at the time it was Russia blowing it up themselves to try and blame the West. Some people claimed it was America to try and sabotage things as well. So now we're saying Ukraine. I don't know. I think it's unless there's absolute concrete evidence to say so. I'm not sure, but I haven't read the reports on it, so I can't comment too much about whether Ukraine are responsible to it. But I do think there's definitely somebody telling porcupines in whoever was responsible for blowing up Nord Stream. That's for sure. But I wouldn't be surprised if it was Ukraine or even Russia or America or whoever, really, because there's a lot of misinformation out there, I'm sure, on that. So
it seems a bit strange to me that all along it seems to have been about Ukraine defending itself from the Russians, and then all of a sudden, the opposite is happening, and they're going into Russia.
Yeah,
it all seems just. I don't think we're getting the whole facts of it. I think there's probably more to it.
There is a bit more to it, actually. And if you just give me a moment, maybe I can.
That's it. I think maybe I need to do a bit of reading on that.
Yeah. So if you actually see here, so this is a website, guys, called the Deep State Map. If you type in Google Deep State Map, this actually shows you it. So right here, so you can see where obviously where there's the cursor here. So obviously there's Sumy, obviously within the Ukraine territory. Now this, according to them, this is what they have apparently taken so far. So the blue is apparently territory that they have confirmed that Ukraine has have gotten it, have liberated as such. And then the grey is unknown, so they're not 100% sure about it. But they're being careful, I think, and they're being a bit more careful. But if you zoom out, you can see it doesn't look like a lot. And obviously, Phil's saying there's more to it. Oh, sorry, he's talking about the Nord Stream thing there. But yeah, blue is confirmed area. This is one anchor pegging. Yeah. So, and obviously the reports there, obviously saying that Sudzra, obviously there was a report, obviously that, like I said, it captures the town. So they have captured the town there. But at the moment, yeah, it is a very big area. It's a very big area. But the blue area, obviously, is quite a big area of what they've captured. If you look at it in the grand scheme of things, it's quite big in comparison to there. But one thing we have to know is that this we will start winding down soon, guys. Don't worry. We'll probably stop at about 10 o'clock. Are you happy to stop at 10 or?
Yeah, 10 will do.
Yeah, I think 10 will do for us, guys. Well, yeah, just in case people are wondering. Yeah, I don't think they will go as far as like Kushuk, as far as there. They may obviously push. They looks like they might be pushing for Konavendo there, that town there. That looks like they might push for that as well, because that looks like what they're trying to push there from the looks of it there. But if you actually see, I can actually show you here. If you actually from the dates, I don't know if it will. Is it going to work? Please work. Yeah. Ah, there you go. So if I actually pull it back, so according to them, so this is it on the 7th, and then this is the 8th, 9th, 10th, and then you can see it's slowly started pushing out from there, and that's when obviously everybody started really talking about it. So that's the story at the moment. Obviously, the big story there, obviously the incursion.
See, there's two ways you can look at that. Part of you can say it doesn't look huge in the grand scheme of things, but then another part of me thinks Russia is so big that that's probably a huge area.
Yeah, I mean it's still a big chunk. I mean, obviously. I mean, and let's say obviously that's still the main line, and they're still pushing. I'll just point it out here. Obviously, for those who don't know, here is where obviously for those who don't know, this is where they've been making the most gains here ever since they took the city of Avdiivka. Ukraine have not been able to stop these pushes here at all. They just cannot stop these pushes at all. They've not been able to stop this at all. It is, yes, I know people will claim in the comments it's obviously small steps, small gains, but it's still like from a month or more ago now since they took it to like still a big chunk of.
All of it's very symbolic as well. It's about the area they take, not just about the fact that they've taken it. A lot of the time, there's meanings to special places. It's like Kursk, a bit of that going on.
Yeah,
isn't Kursk
I mean
the largest tank battle in history?
Yeah, but they all Putin obviously wants all of Donetsk by the end of the year.
Yeah,
that's what he said he wanted. So he's got less than 3.5 months to achieve that. I mean, there are some bits there they're not there. Gary Arnold says they're using Challenger 2 tanks.
I've heard that as well.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's basically. I mean, I'll talk more about that on tomorrow's live stream as well, guys. If you guys want to join me for that, because I'm going to try and get some clips for more on Ukraine. But yeah, it's really fascinating that this. But also, I think another point that Max was making as well when he talked about it on his live stream was to remind the world that hey, we're still in a war. Like I know everyone's looking at Gaza right now because everyone's still talking about Gaza. They're reminding the world that, hey, like we're still fighting a war here and we can show that we can still do stuff. Even if people don't agree with the incursion, they had to do something because what they're doing right now wasn't working. Yeah. I guess one last question I'll ask on you before we move on. Do you think America approved of this incursion? Do you think they knew? And do you think they approved of it?
I think Donald Trump is a bit of a lord unto himself, and he was in charge for a few years, wasn't he? And I think that those few years he was in charge allowed Russia to basically do what they like. But I don't think Biden has approved, and I don't think the American general public would approve, But I do think that Trump being in office for a few years just allowed people like Putin and stuff to just do as they pleased.
Yeah. I mean, we could talk a little bit about America while people, guys. If you have any questions, by the way, for myself or Graeme, please feel free to put them in the chat, guys. Anything you guys want to ask us, feel free to go ahead. We could talk a little bit about Trump and Harris. How are you feeling about the election over in America? Are you quietly confident, or are you thinking like not so sure?
I'm not confident. I still think that it's absolutely possible that Trump could win, but I think it looks less likely than it did when Biden was still in office. But it is still in office, but when Biden was still the contender. I think
I was just going to say, are you planning to watch the debate between Harris and Trump?
Oh, I would imagine I will, yeah. But then I thought that with Keir Starmer, Rishi Sunak, and Keir Starmer he wasn't that impressive in the debates, was he? And I think he probably could have been. So I think Kamala and Trump might be the same. You might expect her to go in there and make a fool of him, but she might not. Who knows? We'll find out, won't we? But I think it'll be interesting. think it'd be a hell of a lot more interesting than it was with Biden, put it that way.
I'm just going to highlight just some things regarding back in Ukraine. So Zhao says the new commander-in-chief in Ukraine is now the former head of the FSB and has already removed troops from the south in Ukraine to move north to counter the Ukrainian. There was reports that Association Press had reported, AP News, that 10,000 Ukrainians are being used in this incursion. Apparently, they're reporting that's a huge amount of troops that they could really need on those front lines there, if that is true. And it's not softball troops that they're using in this incursion. These are hard troops, experienced troops that they're using there as well. Interesting there. And another one he says there, the border defense in the area that Ukrainians enter was not defended because another company was doing the upgrades and was not paid and went bankrupt. There was no replacement for another as well. I mean, they had basic. I mean, some of the forces on the comments were just basics, volunteers or conscripted youngsters who are just there just to border the border, not actually be in the war, but they found themselves in it because they came across the border and they were like, oh, what do I do in this situation? So some of those youngsters were actually captured by Ukrainians.
Well, young lads were there to basically swell the numbers.
Yeah, that is. So One Angry Pagan asks Graham, what do you think about tidal energy? Pretty sure Liverpool has a tidal energy project in Mersey.
I don't know a huge amount about it. I'm aware of it, but I don't know a lot about it. But I would fully support anything like that. Any sort of green energy or anything, I'm fully behind. And I think the government should be behind as well. I think there's almost certainly ways to make it work. And if they had the investment from the government, they would probably be able to.
What do you think about nuclear power? Do you think we should be continuing to pursue nuclear power, or do you think? Because my personal opinion is that we shouldn't be going anywhere near nuclear, even if it's no matter how safe they try to make it, there's still always that risk. Whereas with wind and solar, that we are literally a fucking island. I have to say that. Like there's energy all around us. Like, do we? I just feel like nuclear is just a reason to. It's just a reason to have it there. Like, what do you honestly feel about nuclear power?
I don't think we need it. I think maybe if another 10, 15 years down the line, we get to a point and green energy hasn't returned what we thought it would return, and we can see a huge problem on the horizon, then at least we know there is an answer we can use. But I don't think we should be planning for it now or planning for it to be part of the future. I think bypass it. We should accept that it works if it's needed, but just bypass it and find something better.
Yeah, I definitely think that in terms of we definitely need more wind and solar, and I do think that there was a great. I'm sure I've said this before about like the idea that they have in France, and I think Marcus Allschultz have highlighted this again recently. Obviously, the car parks in France having the solar panels above them, just having a simple enactment like that, like just imagine all the car parks we have, like all the airports with all the massive car parks we have. Just imagine turning them all into massive solar farms, and you would protect the cars from as well, roofs. Like
even apart from the car parks, imagine the amount of these horrible supermarket buildings we have in the middle of a big island of car parks. Imagine if the roofs on those buildings with solar panels.
Yeah,
it would make a huge. If the Asda the nearest Asda store to me is massive, and if the roof of it was all panelled, it would make loads of energy. But it's got to be incorporated in buildings going forward, hasn't it?
Yeah, I definitely think that we need to, we need to obviously, but I also think we need to try to incentivize companies to do it as well. And I don't think it's just a case of just changing the law and saying they have to do it. We have to give them incentivize them to do it, and the benefits of doing it.
It should be cheaper to build a green energy site and more likely to get to be profitable in future than it is to build another gas powered power plant and know that you're going to be able to make a killing on it and just put your prices up whenever you like for the next 30 years.
Number 3 says Fortune reactors may be okay, but I doubt that we need them. I don't know enough about to comment on them myself, so I can't say. to say on that. Mark Walsh, good to see you there. Hope you're doing well. He says we should see out any nuclear facilities already started as the cost and the hazard is already there. Don't start new ones though. I as much as I am a little bit inclined to agree that if their projects are already started, I suppose it makes sense to try and finish those projects.
Yes, because they're incredibly expensive.
Yeah, so I can
also,
understand.
I think then we've got some redundancy in the system, haven't we? It's like if green can't keep up, or if something, God forbid, something terrible happens, and we need a boost of energy, then they are there. But I don't think we should be planning for any new ones. So I totally agree there.
Yeah. Dave McGuinness, thank you so much for £2 super chat. Appreciate your support, my friend. I hope you're doing well. Solar on bus stops will work too. As much as I agree with that, there's just one tiny problem that I have. The one tiny problem I have with that, and this has happened, unfortunately. This has happened, and that is there's a high chance that people will, in the middle of the night, steal those solar panels.
I never thought of that.
You put those materials there, people will seriously try to steal them.
Yeah. Maybe they should only be on buildings that big government buildings.
That's why I think, yeah, if you say supermarkets and secure, that's why I'm thinking if you put the solar panels in secure places, it makes it difficult because what you don't want is to set up solar farms or solar places, where people are just going to end up stealing the materials off them because those materials are expensive, aren't they? Oh. And people will steal them. I mean, like we've seen lots of people stealing these materials and all sorts of metals and whatnot. Has been like the desperation for people to take some of these things. And I can just blatantly see people in the middle of the night, like 2 a.m., stealing solar panels off the top of a bus stop because it's money. So, like literally, yeah. But thank you for the £2 super chat. Warren Pagan says they already robbed solar panels from parking ticket machines down here. Down. So, like, it's problematic. I'm afraid.
Yeah, there's lights near. I live near the canal, and as you go along, there's a few lights that have got a little solar panel on them. But for some reason, they've put this instead of putting it on top of the light, they put the solar panel at like shoulder height. So anyone who wants to get at them can get them. And they all get wrecked every now and again, like.
I mean, it only takes someone to cover in balaclava to literally come along and just take it,
You wonder what the hell they're carrying because sometimes you'll see them and they're properly smashed and like, they must be carrying tools to be able to do that to a solar panel.
I mean, obviously for people on the canals as well, they were using people who were using canal boats, obviously, to go to A to B and that. And they use solar panels, obviously, to power their for power and electricity. And obviously, and if they leave them open-ended when they park up and go away, people will steal the solar panels there. So yeah, I think maybe they might be trying to do something to maybe either toughen the law on it or do something to just make it more difficult for people. I think that's definitely a problem.
There's quite a few houses now where I've got solar panels on the roof, so it is coming on. I mean, it's taking longer than it should, but it does seem to be making progress.
Yeah, and Jao says, and just on top of, I'll just go what his original point he's saying. Nuclear energy is the only viable for people with the same mindset of carbon devas that still dominate our energy policies. Dirty, insecure, consumes water, leave radioactive waste for us to clean. And as we see, nuclear plants can be used as a bargaining chip in military aggression.
Well, it's not wrong, is he? I can't argue with him.
Yeah.
It doesn't change necessarily what I've already said about, I think it's worth having them so we've got some redundancy in the system, but he's not wrong.
Yeah. Number 3 has figured out why they steal solar panels. We will never have foreign suit and solar panels here. Thank you for the £2 super chat. You're absolutely right. That's why they're stealing them. They're not English. They're not British solar panels, Graham. So they have to steal them. They're not British. They're not British. They're French or they're European. So we got to take them away.
Stop putting a big made in UK sticker on them.
If you put a big made in UK, maybe they'll leave them alone. Oh yeah, you meant don't build new ones. Yeah, 100%. We don't want to be building any new nuclear stations if we can help it. If there are already ones, like we said, if there are already ones being built, obviously, then yeah, I guess we just might as well. It probably It depends what costs more, is finishing the project or canceling the project. I think it's a question as well.
Well, this is it. Yeah.
Because when we look at HS2,
that might never really be fully active anyway. It might not necessarily be needed, and it's going to cost 18 million to finish it, but it'll only cost 6 million to wrap it up and pay everybody off and just clear the site. Then maybe we should just clear the site now.
Sandy Bell said it would only take an influencer to say solar panels were spying on you or something, and they'd be filming their destitution for. To be fair, we're being spied on all the time, Sandy. Anywhere and everywhere. There are cameras everywhere these days.
I'm not bothered. It is what it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
All lampposts, not lampposts. All of the traffic lights that you press the buttons on to cross, they've all got them on mine lately around here.
Yeah. It's the famous yellow. It's the famous yellow ones where they have the yellow ones, don't they? And then when there's certain areas where they say like camera coming up or speed camera coming up or something. And for me, it's like that's the one thing. I'm not a driver, so I can't comment. For me, it's like, why are you telling drivers that there's a speed camera there? Don't you want to not tell them that there's a speed camera there? Because the assumption is that you should be following the rules anyway.
Yeah.
Isn't that the assumption?
It doesn't need a warning.
That would be, guys. Any other questions, guys? We'll be wrapping up soon. If you guys have any questions, feel free to throw them now. Thanks everyone for all the super chats. I really appreciate it, guys. It makes a massive difference. And guys, if you ain't subscribed to Graeme Pryce's YouTube channel, links in the description. Power to the people. I'm still used to saying countdown to power. It is a very cool name. Yeah, nuclear waste toxic is all to life for over 100,000 years. Yeah, it's nuclear is dangerous. It's dangerous. Yes, it is dangerous.
Yeah.
But
I like the Fallout games as much as the next person, but I don't want to live in them.
Oh God, me and you could talk for hours about Fallout. If you've played I played the video games before it became big before it became big. And I'm not talking about the TV series, guys. I'm talking about the video game. So yeah,
well, it's the earliest one I played. I haven't played any of the Isolinear ones on the computer, but I've played all the console ones.
Oh. Well, we'll have that discussion after the live stream then. You have to tell people about the cameras by law. I don't. Maybe that's a law they should change. Maybe it's just me. Like the thing is that if you're breaking the law, that's for me it's like if you're breaking the law, that's your fault, isn't it? To have to tell people, hey, there's a camera coming. You need to slow down. You passed the camera, now you can speed up again. Like,
yeah, that suggests the only place to go under the speed limit is when there's a camera. They could be doing 120 miles an hour everywhere else.
Yeah. But if it's a law, it's a law. You have to follow the law at the end of the day. So, One Angry Pagan also said we need more wind and solar in Devon and Cornwall. We are most exposed to the Atlantic Ocean for FFs, for fuck's sake. Yeah, you are. You should be getting more of it, but not in my backyard, they will say.
And NIMBYs.
Not in my backyard. Not on my beautiful cliffs there. How dare you suggest such an idea? That's the problem there, guys. He also says there are so many damn rabbits down here. I swear we could divine energy from them. And Pagan, I hope you're not suggesting something there.
Little dynamo.
Sorry, what were you going to say, Graeme, before I cut you off?
No, you're fine. I've forgotten. Never mind.
No. Super Tiny Arrow says, thank heavens the onshore and wind moratorium is over. Fuck Cameron. I'm just going to say Elf Cameron, if you want to say, but yeah.
A ridiculous law they had where just one person could reject and then they'd have to go away and prove that they had planning permission and stuff.
Yeah. Ah, interesting point from number 3. The point is to slow traffic down. Psychology is often cheaper than courts. That is true. That is true, actually. That is true. I suppose that's a very fair point from number 3 there.
It's social placebo, isn't it? I suppose.
Yeah, that's a very good. It's a very fair point from number 3 there. I have to say there. That is for sure. So, guys, just before we wrap things up, I want to say a massive thank you for everyone who's come here today. Thank you guys all for your for the super chats. It really greatly appreciated. Guys, if you haven't already, please head over to Graeme's. I was about to say Graeme Hughes out. Oh my god, I'm losing it today. Check out Graeme Pryce's YouTube channel, A Power to the People. The link for it is in the description, guys. Please go and subscribe. Check out his content. If you haven't seen it already, I do recommend it. If there's a video to watch, go and check out his video on 5 reasons why Jacob Rees-Mogg is a twat. Although I'm sure you can find more than 5 reasons, but that was one of his best videos, guys. So if you want a video to kind of get to know some of the stuff he does, do check that out. Just before we wrap things up, Graeme, I think one last question I was like, what's the future plan really for your channel, I suppose? Because I never really asked that question. What is the actual, where you're going? What's the main plan now for your channel?
Oh, the plan is to watch what Labour do and hope that I watch the same type of events in history unfold that I did last time that Labour were in office. Because last time they were in office, they did great things, and I grew up in quite a nice place. Britain was a much nicer place between 97 and 2010 than it has been since. My plan is to watch and hope that happens. And if it doesn't happen, I mean, it's going to be a while until, we start to really see the effect of the Labour government. But, 18 months down the line, if that hasn't happened, I'm going to start asking why. And I'm going to start asking why they aren't more democratic and why they aren't making things better for people. In the meantime, I'm just keeping my eye on what's happening. I'm reporting on what I see, things like the riots and stuff like that. I'll keep putting out little videos about things like that.
Yep, and you can still keep bashing on the Conservatives because there's a leadership contest there. You can always go back that material as well.
Yeah, there's still over 100 of them, and I haven't done them all yet.
There you go, guys. There's going to be so many 5 reasons, so many Conservatives he's got lined up for you guys. Like I said, guys, do go and check out his YouTube channel, guys. Graeme, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate you giving your time.
My pleasure.
Honestly, I was like, actually, believe it or not, like a month ago, I was like, when I usually playing that because I wanted to get you on, and I was telling people in our live shows, I was like, how the fuck do I contact this guy? That's what I was saying to people. That's what I was trying to figure out, because I was like, and then finally I found your email, and I was like, okay, so there I can contact you there. So, but no, I appreciate obviously you giving up your time and on here. But yeah, guys, please do check out his YouTube channel. It's absolutely great work. And Graeme, thanks again. Do keep up the great work, obviously, what you're doing on there. And I'm more than happy to have you on again in the future if you're definitely up for it.
Yeah, we'll do it again.
Yeah. So guys, just before I end the stream, just want to say, obviously, guys, I will be back tomorrow with the Snowflake conflict, which we'll talk about mainly Ukraine. I might cover some things on Gaza. I might do some bits on Myanmar or Sudan. It depends what content I find for you guys as well. On the weekends, guys, I've got premiere videos on the evenings, both Regan's News Round, which will cover various stories in the UK. You can guys check that out. I've recorded that. That will be on Saturday. And on Sunday, there'll be a World's News Round. That'll be at 7 p.m. before All Shorts goes live later on Sunday evening. So if you guys want to come together on the weekend, I don't know if I'll be there in chat for you guys, but if you guys want to do that, feel free to do so. And just a final reminder before I go out, guys, my schedule will be a little bit tweaked next week because I've got some events to go to. Some of you guys have probably seen on Twitter about where I possibly might be going to a certain wrestling show in Cardiff on Wednesday. So obviously, so there will be a bit of tweaking to my schedule next week, guys. So I just wanted to let you guys know that as well. But I will obviously put it all in a community post Monday morning as usual for you guys as well. So Graeme, once again, thanks again for coming along.
My pleasure.
Yep. And thanks you guys all for coming along. And just before I hit the end stream button, just one last thing, guys. If you haven't already, please hit the like button. We greatly appreciate. Share it across social media so others are notified of this live stream. If you haven't subscribed to both our channels, please do. It really does help support both our channels, and we greatly appreciate it. And if you want to go one step further, financially support both the work that myself and Graeme does on our respective channels, you could do so by becoming YouTube members or by joining our Patreons as well. So thank you all so much for watching, guys, and we hope to catch you all very, very soon. Bye. Now,